Sometimes in life, we may start to take things for granted and lose sight of how truly lucky we are. We may take our family for granted, our friends for granted. We may take the roof over our heads, a hot shower, or a hot meal for granted. I find myself doing this for many things in my life, and I especially found myself doing it before my family and I started volunteering at a homeless shelter in downtown Columbus. My first experience was when I was 10 years old, and will be a day that I will never forget. As we entered the homeless shelter, I was shocked to see the state that some of these people were in. I specifically remember seeing one man's shoes, and I could see his toes through his shoes. I had never seen anything like this in my whole life, and it really made me realize how in need these people were. As people continued to filter into the shelter, we were taken back to the kitchen where we would be preparing the meal for the day, which was chili dogs and vegetables as a side dish. Sounds good, right? So as we served these people their food, I just could not help but to notice how extremely thankful, grateful, and just overall happy these people were to receive such a simple meal that most of us might not even want to eat. So everybody gets their food and they sit down. We take some food for ourselves and we sit down to join them for lunch. Of course, I decided to sit with a man with holes in his shoes. His name was Joe Peterson, and he was in his early 60s. One of the first things he asked me was, "You a ball player?" He probably noticed the jacket that I was wearing from my baseball team. We talked for a while about football, baseball, and of course Ohio State. And shortly after, I decided to ask Joe if he had any family. This made him pause for a moment. He then told me that his wife had passed away 5 years ago and that he no longer kept in touch with any of his kids. I just felt absolutely terrible for asking Joe this because it obviously brought back some very difficult memories for him. All I could think to myself was, I've got to do something to make up for this. I then excused myself from our conversation and went to go talk to my dad. I told him about everything that had happened with Joe's family, how I felt so bad about it, and I suggested that we should give him some money so that he can at least buy a new pair of shoes that covers his whole foot. My dad thought this was a great idea, and he gave me $60 to give to Joe. As we returned to the table, I apologized again to Joe about his family. We talked for a little while, and then I pulled out the $60. Almost immediately, Joe broke out into tears and started crying. This was where the whole experience hit home for me. Volunteering at this homeless shelter made me realize that we should be thankful for everything in our lives and that we should never, ever take anything